Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Encores Club, where each month a panel of experienced music fans dive into new music. I'm your host, Rhonda, and my co-host is always Velvet Rebel, who happens to be my intern at Daily Durani. And if you haven't heard of Daily Durani, it is the longest-running content site for Duran Duran fans. Velvet Rebel is also a very busy music writer. He's a papa to a couple of cats, and he's a DJ. So, Velvet Rebel, you want to tell me anything about your cats today?
Today's a very stressful day. One is currently at the vet. So after today's episode, we're headed back there, had a few teeth removed. So it's been a stressful day, but here we are talking music, and that is the one thing that relaxes me. Very excited about our special guest today, a good friend of mine, Simon Dodsworth, who traded London, England for Texas almost 30 years ago, but the blood of the Clash still runs strong in him. He supports probably the most evil football club in London with Tottenham Hotspur. So I got the West Ham flag out today. When it comes to rock and roll, West Ham is supported by Iron Maiden. Tottenham, who do you guys have? I know you have Adele and Chaz and Dave.
Chaz and Dave, Adele, Kenneth Branagh, Jude Law, and Ron Weasley.
You got Weasley? Okay, well, I'll give you Weasley. It's not rock and roll, but that's still pretty cool. Thank you for coming on board with us, Simon. I know you're in the same boat as me. You go to so many concerts. You saw the Yazoo reunion, right? When they came through the States a couple years ago?
No, I did see Alison Moyet.
That's what it was. It was the Moyet one.
You supported her album with a very short tour and in Minneapolis. It's fantastic. First time I've seen her in like 30 years.
Your Facebook provides me a little window into the shows I can't get to. So, today we're going back to England with two different bands. First up this week is Hate for Sale, the latest from the Pretenders. Chrissie Hynde, of course, traded Ohio for London back in the 70s, and music has never been the same since. The new album features the return of Martin Chambers on drums and is produced by one of my favorite producers, the legendary Stephen Street, who worked with Blur and Morrissey. Sorry, Simon, it's the only Morrissey mention of the show. He's not a fan. On some of their best albums. So here's a quick listen to Hate for Sale. That's the latest from the Pretenders, Hate for Sale. Simon, you are the special guest. What did you think of this album?
So I had been anticipating this album for a while. As much as MP3s and the whole streaming digital plus music purist isn't the best form of music, it was nice to get those songs out before the album got that released 4 tracks, that one being the first one. To me, that song really harkened back to Pretenders 1, Pretenders 2. It had that rocking sound that I think everyone recognizes as Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders, and was severely lacking in some of their last albums. Just, to me, weren't as strong as the stuff in the 80s. And that song really resonated with me with that kind of beat, that kind of guitar sound that we're so used to.
Awesome. Rhonda, what do you think?
I have to say, I really enjoyed the album. I have to. I wanted to make sure I understood. You thought their latest effort, the one before this, wasn't as strong as the one in the 80s. Is that what you had said, Simon?
Yeah, I think the album was called Alone.
Yeah,
which came out like in 2017, 2016. It was just weak. There were a couple of great tracks. Yeah, I would say 8 out of the 10 tracks are really strong.
Okay. That's what I thought you had said, but I wasn't sure because I agreed with you that I thought I was really hopeful that this one would kind of be more of a return back to the type of music that they're strongest with. It was pure rock for me. I really enjoyed it. The more I listened to it, the more I realized that there's a part of me that really wishes she could be Chrissie Hynde. I'm just not that cool. I thought it was just easily as edgy as anything I can remember from them, if not even more so. I liked the versatility in the album. There's I can't remember the name of the darn song. It's the one I knew I was going to not write it down. It's something, junkie walk, something like that.
Mhm. Okay.
That was probably my favorite song on the album, just because I really dug the groove to that. It was a lot of fun. It's the subject is sad, but I mean the song was fantastic. So I really liked it. What do you think, Jason?
Well, I am going to be bold here in this statement, but I think top to bottom, this might be my favorite Pretenders album ever. I've gone back over the last week and listened to some of the early ones, and I agree. I think it was 2016's Alone. Dan Auerbach, the Black Keys, produced it, and to me, it felt like they were trying to be like the Pretenders, sound like the Pretenders, but they were trying too hard. Whereas this just naturally captures everything the Pretenders were originally doing with the post punk, the new wave. Lightning Man. There's a hint of reggae. It's probably the first album I've listened to where I was thinking in my head, "Wow, this song would be great if the Clash did Lightning Man." But then a few songs
Yeah,
later,
I picked up on that.
"You Can't Hurt a Fool." I think it's the last song. I'm thinking
Mhm.
Amy Winehouse would have torched this song and made it beautiful. I mean, every different style of music that the Pretenders do well, I think they've done absolutely perfect here. I had the same feeling about OMD when OMD returned. I think The Punishment of Luxury, their last album, top to bottom, is my favorite album they've ever done. So it really speaks to how incredible these artists are, that they're still making music that's not only relevant and modern sounding, is up there with some of their most famous work. And hopefully this one gets the attention it deserves. And I know bands can go on the road and support it now, but if you're out there listening, this is one of those albums. If you haven't heard the Pretenders in a few years, maybe missed the last few albums, go get Hate for Sale. This album is timely, it fits the times, and it's just one of the best albums you're going to hear. And speaking of bands that maybe took a little break and have come back, next up, we're talking Psychedelic Furs, which they haven't released an album since 1991, which was produced ironically by Stephen Street. The band's toured recently. I saw them recently. I thought they were fantastic. Rhonda caught them on what we'll call an off night, which she'll tell you in just a second. But here is a little taste of the new Psychedelic Furs.
A flight of crows, my insect heart, the ticking veins, this godless dart, the druggy days.
That was one of the new tracks from Psychedelic Furs. Really excited to have them making music again. Like I said, I saw them a few years ago in concert. Really enjoyed the show. But Rhonda, you've had a different experience with them in concert. Tell us about that.
I think I've been really unlucky, because with them. Um, but I want to say I've seen them probably at least three times that I can remember, and my husband seems to think we've seen them more times than that, um, which probably says something right there, because they haven't been very memorable for me. Um, the one time, though, in particular, was, I believe it was at the Inland Invasion Festival a long time ago, and he fell flat. Richard Butler fell flat on his back right on stage. I mean, and he couldn't remember the words to some of the songs. It was just, I feel like maybe they were just getting back into it, and it just wasn't there yet. And I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen them. Probably, maybe 5 years now. I'm not sure. Um, I would go see them again. The album, though, Made of Rain, unmistakably Psychedelic Furs, in my opinion. I mean, they've got a sound, and they really do use it to their benefit. um I There wasn't anything really overly surprising, except that I would say that I did hear, like, they ventured a little bit into the blues. There was a definite slide guitar used on a couple of different songs. I really enjoyed The Boy That Invented Rock and Roll. I also heard some experimentation. Come on, ye faithful. Um, the lyrics are sometimes poignant, sometimes not. I mean, that sort of was a mixed bag for me. It's a good album. I, I don't know that I would rush out to buy it. Let's put it that
Cool.
way. What did you think, Jason?
For me, that lead single, "The Boy That Invented Rock and Roll," it comes out of the gates like a monster. Actually, the way the rhythm works, I was actually thinking of Vaseline by Stone Temple Pilots, which is not a band I would associate with Psychedelic Furs. But I love the first half of the album. It's a little more rock. This'll Never Be Like Love. There's even a hint of shoegaze in it. I was hearing like a little bit of Jesus and Mary Chain, maybe a little slow dive to that. And then the second half, and I think Simon's going to say tell us that he got it on vinyl because he always gets the cool records. I should have pre-ordered it because this is one of those albums where you definitely, when you turn it over, there's a different change in atmosphere. Turn Your Back on Me towards the end of the album, I think, is a beautiful single. I think it should be released. I mean, I don't know how bands release singles these days or if people hear them, but it's kind of like the kind of ballad I wish the Killers had made at some point because they've never quite got there with the slow song. But I think it's really beautiful. The songwriting is right on point. It's what they've always done well. If I have any complaints, it's the same complaint I would say about just about any Furs album. The production is always so big that for me, sometimes it gets a little muddy. And in a way, I kept thinking, man, I wish Stephen Street had done this album, and they brought him back because what he did with the Pretenders album just seemed very clean. You hear all the instruments. This was such a wall of sound that sometimes the wall kind of overpowered everything about it, and I kind of got lost in that. But at the same time, the Furs are back. They're making music, and this is a worthy album to add to their collection, and gives us some new songs to hear in concert, which, if nothing else, that makes me excited to go see them again. Simon, what was your take?
I'm probably a little more biased. This is one of my favorite bands I've seen in the 80s a number of times. Rhonda, I've seen Richard Butler at not his best as well. In fact, the first time I saw them, it was in Sydney, and it was 82, and he was so drunk that he did not know so many of the songs. I was right at the front. He had played in a pub. He kept handing me the microphone as I was singing. But for me, it was a memorable gig because I saw them in a pub in Sydney with like 400 people, cool. And I sang with the band. So that's like up there in my top 3 concerts of the time. But this album, I've been absolutely anticipating this album because I think they went out with a whimper. Back there in 91, that last album was not very good. I think the one before that was a Book of Days. It was not very strong. And the album Midnight to Midnight in the late 80s, it was so commercial. Yeah. That album, one track, was an utter disappointment. This, to me, is their best album since Mirror Moves. I agree with you, Jason. There's probably some lavish production, some tracks. But the Boy Who Invented Rock and Roll, Wrong Train of fantastic tracks. I really, again, as I mentioned earlier, the Pretenders album, some of the tracks that were pre-released ahead of the album's release, 3 of those are, for me, very, very strong. No One, Don't Believe, which had a lot of talk in it, and You'll Be Mine, I thought were fantastic tracks to really emphasize that this album was going to be appealing. And the reviews that I followed the Furs on social media, reviews, presses of this album certainly does put it up there. Top 4 or 5 of their albums. It should connect fans. They do a lot of touring, particularly in the States. The club is based here. And they do a lot of gigs. And I was going to see them again this summer until shit hit the fan. And those tracks, which, as you said, would have mixed it up because it's only sometimes you can hear Love My Way.
Yeah, for me, in a lot of ways, I think the Furs and the Fix are 2 bands that I obviously knew in the 80s. I listened to the singles, but maybe I didn't dive as deep into the albums as I should have. And now as I go back and experience those albums, those bands, their albums hold up better than a lot of the bands I thought were cooler and more popular at the time. And they're both incredible live bands when I see them. So, at least we still have the opportunity to go support these bands now. So, if you're at home, both albums this week, go out there, buy them in some kind of physical format, whatever you want to listen to. But we need to keep supporting these bands because they're not on the road making money, and we got to keep them going so we can have more music to talk about.
All right. Well, that's about all the time we've got for today, believe it or not. It's time for a curtain call where we choose the episode's top album. We might love them both, and it sounds like you guys both do, but we only get to crown one the Encores Club champion. For me, I have to say that Hate for Sale really kind of edges out Made of Rain. Although I did enjoy both, I will buy both. There's no question. Simon, what did you think?
Well, I think probably because I led in with, I'm a bit biased on the Furs. And trust me, I've been playing both albums we just got my physical copy of Rain. But I've been playing Hate for Sale an awful lot. It came out a few weeks ago. But Made of Rain, I love the Furs. I love the new sound. It's great to hear them releasing new music, playing new music. And so for me, that's the winner.
What about you, Jason?
Being a tiebreaker, because I agree with what both of you are saying. In terms of the two albums, my favorite song off either is "The Boy Then Invented Rock and Roll." I think it's just a killer track. But if I have to pick one album, top to bottom, for me, it is The Pretenders' "Hate for Sale." So I'm giving it a slight edge, and I will be online. Honey, are you listening? I'm going to be ordering them on vinyl.
Oh. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning into the Encores Club this month. You can find us on Twitter at Encores Club if you want to chat music, and we will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.